If you've been in any English class, then you'd know the age-old question that every English teacher will ask you when you get to the Shakespearean unit. What defines a tragedy in literature? And since we were born in an age of technology, we can just go on Google and type out what defines a tragedy and hope that the prezzies made by the students and the Britannica dictionary definition can tell us. But that's too easy, especially when you're in Miss Earle's grade 12 English class. For us, we need to go deeper, find things out for ourselves so we can finally raise our hands when the teacher asks, what defines a tragedy in literature? To answer this question, let's get to the beginning. Not exactly when tragedies were first created, but when they got a pretty solid definition of what they were. Aristotle, a Greek philosopher, describes tragedies as a form of drama exciting the emotions of pity and fear. Its action should be single and complete, presenting a reversal of fortune, involving persons renowned of superior attainments, and it should be written in poetry embellished with every kind of artistic expression. And with his definition in mind, we'll be looking at what I believe are the main parts that make up a tragedy. For this, we'll be looking at two famous books for references, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Shakespeare's play Othello, both of which are known for being a tragedy. To be able to constitute having a tragedy in literature, the piece requires a noble character / a hero and their nemesis. By having a noble character, it allows for a tragedy to take place and for there to be someone for the tragedy to happen to. A noble character is an essential part of the piece of literature, and it would not be a tragedy without them. They're defined by the experiences they go through throughout the piece, like going through a reversal of fortune, having their tragic flaw revealed, making errors in judgment, having catharsis moments, and lastly, dying. In Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein is the tragedy's noble character, while Othello is the noble character in Shakespeare's play, Othello. The two characters have gone through the experiences I said before, but they couldn't have made their literature into a tragedy just by themselves. That's where the notion of a nemesis comes in. You see, the nemesis allows and is usually the one to create conflict between the noble character and the rest of the characters in the play. They help to create the tragedy and they strive to bring the hero to their downfall, constantly having a hand in all the misfortunes that the noble character might go through. And they are ultimately the biggest reason why the noble character dies. In Frankenstein, we know that Victor's creation is his nemesis because throughout the entire book, since the moment Victor created the monster, Victor and the monster were always against each other. Victor's monster especially, as it had strived to get revenge on Victor after Victor abandoned him and broke his promise in making a companion for him. His creation had caused the noble character, Victor, to go through many, many problems, internal conflict, and he even revealed Victor's tragic flaw and was ultimately the reason why Victor had died in the end. With these characteristics, we can also see how Iago is Othello's nemesis in Shakespeare's play. Just as Victor's monster, Iago had strived to lead Othello to his downfall. He had created conflicts between characters, manipulated everyone for his selfish purpose, and plotted them all against each other to pursue his goal in taking revenge on Othello. Although his wife Emilia was successful in unraveling all of Iago's lies and deceit, Iago's goal for having Othello die or get killed succeeded. For these two pieces of literature, we can see how both the noble character and the nemesis are essential to a tragedy. We see how the noble character serves as the good character, showcasing the good and heroic traits they have while earning sympathy and evoking emotions of pity and fear from the audience. The nemesis serves as a catalyst of the noble character's downfall, creating conflict that plays heavily on the hero's tragic flaw, which is what ultimately leads the noble character to their downfall. They both help to define if their literature is a tragedy or not, and they are essential for every aspect of a tragedy. Although having both a noble character and a nemesis is a good start in creating a tragedy in literature, by Aristotle's definition, it is ultimately the experiences that the characters must go through, which is what makes the piece of literature a true tragedy. When we examine both Mary Shelley's book Frankenstein and Shakespeare's play Othello, we can see the main characters / noble heroes go through the same experiences that Aristotle describes all tragedies to have. According to him, all tragedy should show clearly who was the protagonist or noble hero and why, revealing the noble hero's tragic flaw, showing them make errors in judgment, showing them going through a reversal in fortune, and finally, dying a death caused by their nemesis. All of these combined are the experiences that help to define a tragedy in any literary work. For example, in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the novel starts off with a captain who has stumbled upon an emaciated Victor Frankenstein who ends up telling his life story, thus showing that he is the story's main protagonist and focus. As he tells his story, we end up piecing together what might be Victor's tragic flaw, which we find out to be selfishness and irresponsibility. His flaw, shown by his creation, is what leads him into making continuous errors in judgment, like not speaking up at Justine's trial even when he knew the truth, not telling his family about his creation, and breaking the promise that he made to the monster, and then many other things. All of Victor's misfortunes and sufferings had his creation as the root cause, and in the end became the reason for Victor's downfall. In Shakespeare's play Othello, we see that Othello, a noble and loyal general, is the noble hero of the play, while Iago, a very manipulative man, is introduced as his nemesis. Since he's not in any direct conflict, Iago is able to create easily misinterpreted scenarios for Othello to believe, mainly having to do with his wife, Desdemona, which ends up revealing Othello's tragic flaw, jealousy. Driven by both jealousy and Iago's lies, Othello makes grave errors in judgment and goes through a reversal of fortune, where he ends up murdering his wife after believing Iago's lies about Desdemona cheating on him with his friend Cassio. Finally, Othello commits suicide, thus, with the addition of all the experiences he went through, making the play into a tragedy. Finally, the last piece that helps to bring it all together, to make a complete tragedy, are those moments in between all the chaos and conflict. These moments are the catharsis moments. The hero's catharsis, in turn, translates into the audience who feels the same intense emotions as the noble hero does, and ultimately, after the play, the audience is able to leave the theater feeling washed and cleansed once the play is over. So what defines a tragedy? Now, as we get called upon our English teachers, we can confidently say that there are 4 main parts that helpfully define a tragedy in literature. So, if there's a noble character, a nemesis, the entire tragic experience of the noble character, i.e. a reversal of fortune, exposed tragic flaw, etc., and some catharsis moments, then it's a tragedy.